welcome to The Game Changers. I'm Sue Anstis, and this is the podcast where you'll hear from trailblazing women in sport who are literally knocking down barriers to challenge the status quo for women and girls across society. I'd like to start with a big thank you to our partners, Sport England, who support The Game Changers through the National Lottery. My guest today is Fiona Morgan, SailGP's Director of Purpose and Impact, who's driving the championship's commitment to a better future and a better sport. She's been instrumental in creating the pioneering Impact League, SailGP's world-first initiative to make sustainability essential to the fabric of sport. With nearly 20 years' experience in the sports industry, Fee has an exceptional track record of shaping social impact strategy and delivering campaigns for some of the world's most high-profile sports brands. She's worked with a host of global athletes throughout her career, from tennis legend Chris Everett through to David Beckham and Bradley Wiggins, and was also responsible for developing the commercial strategy for the London 2012 Olympic Games. As I'm sure we'll hear, Fee believes deeply in the power of sport to drive well-being and to ensure a better world. So welcome, Fee. And I wonder if we can start by hearing more about SailGP.
Yeah, so SailGP we're a challenger sport, a really exciting new sport that we're only in season 3, and we are the fastest, most adrenaline-fueled foiling boats on the water. So it is quite like a motorsport global circuit, but it's foiling boats. So it's kind of racing, not sailing, is what we say. And it's nation versus nation and inshore. So really, one of the big USPs about SailGP is it's kind of that even platform. We share data. So the athletes, they believe it shows the best sailors in the world because they all know what each other are doing. We share data. There's obviously shared commercial caps on the boat. So, there's no real advantage except for the talent on board. So it's super exciting. Again, season 3. And we're a bit different in the way we approach sport because when we were set up by Larry Ellison, who obviously is one of the Oracle founders and a huge tech kind of brain, he set us up differently and said, there's kind of 3 pillars to your business in sport. It's entertainment. You need to be entertaining. You're sailing and people will not think that we're entertaining. So what are you doing differently in that kind of perspective? Sustainability. You're on the water. Your racetrack is the ocean. What is sport doing for sustainability? That must be at the heart of what you're doing. And obviously the last pillar is technology. Being a tech giant and Oracle being a big partner is kind of how can tech play kind of a role across all of that in making the sport better and making the planet better. So really driving innovation and kind of challenging the normal side of sport and how we operate.
And I'm just going to take you a tiny bit to foiling. So can you tell us about foiling for those that maybe not be as familiar with sailing?
Foiling is there's foils on our boats and they lift out of the water. So actually the objective of foiling in SailGP is to have your foils out of the water 100% of the racing because it makes you go faster. So when you see it, they're like flying machines across the water. They're not really traditional sailing boats. Obviously with traditional sails, we still have obviously different sails, but actually it's all about kind of getting on the foils, using the power of nature to kind of get on those foils and get up in the water. So, it's interesting because when people watch the sport or go to an event, they get it. But when we talk about it, it just doesn't make sense. So, I would encourage everyone, it's on Sky Sports, go and watch it 5-10 minutes and I think you'll be hooked.
I completely agree. Actually, I've watched them windsurfing recently over at Bray Lake, but they were on foils and it does make me feel like they're flying. It makes you feel like you want to go and I feel it must be easy, but clearly it's not, I've been told.
Clearly it's not, and it's actually quite dangerous. So like you're going at that speed and when you're foiling, I mean, you really rely on nature, you rely on the wind. We had Mika Hakkinen on a boat in our French SailGP event. And, I think he went in thinking, I can do this. I've Formula One cars. This is nothing. His face when he came off, we have this video, and he was just in shock by the whole thing, just by the whole kind of the racing on water, the foiling and the nature and just the dramatic side of it. So yeah, it's definitely racing, not sailing, and a spectacle, but dangerous too. So, there's a lot of responsibility and health and safety that we need to take into consideration.
Absolutely. And I have watched, because watching it on the Sky and on YouTube too, and just seeing the boats cutting in front of each other, incredibly exciting to watch with the commentary
Lots of crashes, which is not good, but it is good for the TV, but it's not good.
And you mentioned there sustainability as one of the pillars. So from you personally, what does sustainability mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really like the word sustainability, which is quite interesting. You'll see my title is purpose and impact because, in my career, when, sustainability was siloed, I mean, that's been the problem I think that businesses had. It's kind of sat in its own team and it's their responsibility, when actually sustainability is just about doing things differently. And, Forest Green Rovers, one of the kind of sports teams I look up to and inspire me, the road to their stadium is a different way. And that's, for me, sustainability is what are we doing differently for obviously social sustainability, inclusion, diversity and equity, and then, kind of the better planet side, the climate and the environmental sustainability. So for me, obviously economic sustainability fits in there, but the way I really focus on it is, how are we making the sport better and the planet better? Those two elements and using different words. I think, rebranding sustainability, to be honest, and making it relevant to everyone. And sport is not excluded from sustainability. And that's what obviously my job is, explaining that to everyone in the business and beyond.
So you talk about embedding sustainability. We are going to use that phrase in SailGP, but what does that mean in real terms, day to day?
It's actually Kate Adams, who is a good friend and works the British Paralympic Committee. She said it, a great phrase to me the other day. I'm the chief conscious officer of our business. So I suppose what my role, I feel, is you need to embed thinking differently and being more sustainable in every element of the business. So HR, operations, it's not just the traditional, of what you think. It's our marketing and comms team. How are they thinking about sustainability when they communicate? How are our event hospitality teams? So it's really spending time with teams and explaining their role in sustainability, what they can do, and actually, giving them a bit of responsibility and ownership to deliver it. So not being worthy and judgmental, but really just explaining why they're important. Everyone plays a part in the jigsaw. So it's taken me, I've been here nearly 2 years and I feel like I'm making headway, but change is uncomfortable, and what I'm trying to do is make everyone take responsibility for problems and do things differently. And some people adapt. I think the younger generation, I find a lot of our staff actually here have come into SailGP because of the purpose and sustainability. And they love what we're trying to achieve and our ambitions. So, they want to do things differently. But to be honest, we'll get into sailing, but it's a traditional white male sport. And so there's a lot of people stuck in their ways and want to do what they've done before. And that's not SailGP's ethos. So I've had to kind of, it's different teams and spend time. And it's all about people and getting to know them and making them feel part of the solution with you, which I love. I love working with people. It's fascinating.
And in terms of those people and the staff, obviously the athletes on the water are part of that team too. So has it been easier working with them than, say, professional footballers or cyclists or other athletes in terms of that message?
Yeah, I think so. I worked a bit on Volvo Ocean Race before and I saw that sailors and they're on the water and the power of nature and kind of, the ocean, they just see it every day and it's kind of part of who they are. And so they inherently want to protect it. So like you said, I do think, they are more open-minded and more committed to it just because that is their racetrack and that's what they've grown up with. I also think it's authentic. So I think people, brands or consumers understand why a sailing league would care. 70% of the world is the ocean and we rely on that. And, we want to protect it because that is our playground. That is our racetrack. So I love seeing what other sports are doing and supporting them. But yeah, definitely sailing and water sports are definitely going first and, relating the problems and solving them quicker, I would say. And hopefully we'll inspire the sports by what we're doing.
And I was at an event for the sports construction industry last week, and a speaker from a sustainability charity painted what I can only describe as a hugely depressing image of what the future might look like for global sport in terms of the impacts of heat and pollution and water levels and transport and so on. So why do you feel that sport's so important in that bigger discussion around environmental sustainability?
Gosh, that's a bit depressing and sad, isn't it? I don't like to hear that. I think, where do I start with this? I think, not to quote Mandela, he's, all the time, but sport really has this power. It inspires people. And this problem is a problem for the world. Climate change is for everyone. And if people like it or not, we all need to change one or two behaviors and the world will be different. Sport and fashion will be big vehicles to educate people and help them change behavior. Because if your, favorite football team or your favorite player does something different, it's tribal. Fans will follow and fans will listen and fans will do more. So sport has this responsibility and this power. We're not scientists, we're not trying to scare them. And actually what really annoys me is when sustainability professionals paint this depressing picture. Our job is hope and optimism. If we don't have hope and try and change, then God help us all. So, there's a great article that Futerra, one of the sustainability comms agency, wrote called Sell the Sizzle. And I completely resonate that. Sell the vision of what world we want to be. So don't sell, this is going to happen, water levels rise, we'll have no, tennis won't be played, it'll be played indoors, there'll be no fans in, the World Cup. That doesn't help anyone. Paint the picture of what a new way of sport could look like. And actually it's quite cool and it could be different. There's loads of added value and, we can do things differently and it might be great. So that's sport's job. And that is what we need to do, because doom and gloom, we know scientifically, that's not going to help anyone change behavior. It just scares people into retracting and saying too big a problem, can't cope.
You mentioned last year you launched the Impact League. So how does that operate and what impact might that have more broadly beyond SailGP too?
Yeah, the Impact League is probably one of the proudest things I've ever done. One of the scariest things, to be honest. So going back to, I suppose, why SailGP was set up, it's to challenge sport and obviously have sustainability at the heart. So when I first came into role, I thought, what can we do? The best thing about being a new sport is you can kind of do what you want. You can kind of set the precedent and you own your teams. So you have kind of a lot of control over everything in your athletes and all of the events that you race at. So we thought, what can we control? What do we want to do? And we set the ambition to be the most sustainable, purpose-driven sport in the world. Huge ambition. We're definitely not there. But I thought, what would a sport do if they want to be that? For me, the athletes are this huge voice, and we really want them to operate more sustainably. And we know behavioral science, I've done a lot of work on behavioral science and sustainability, works. So especially with men, with male athletes, I did a lot of work on the Premier League and in football and sustainability, and we know that they will adapt well to that. So we thought, let's make being good and being sustainable and being inclusive competitive. So what does that mean? 2 leagues. So that's where we came up with the concept of kind of redefining performance at SailGP. So performance is not just sporting performance, it's sustainability. And that's social and environmental. We want them to be these kind of ambassadors, these beacons in sport. And people look up to them and they make good decisions and they think things through and they do things differently. So we set up a league called the Impact League because it's all about positive impact. And there's 10 criteria that our teams operate against. So when they race, say we just had a race in Bermuda, they don't just race on the water, they race for the Impact League. So they're providing me data, like what are they eating? How are they traveling to the event? What mentoring are they giving? Like what young people in Bermuda are they trying to get into sailing? What clubs can they adopt and support? What are they doing for their female athletes? They give us all this data after the event. We have an auditor. It's quite serious because, again, these athletes, very competitive. So you have to make sure you're kind of accountable, measurable, robust. And we score them. And then you come out with a leaderboard. And it is incredible. The day the leaderboard comes out, I am the most unpopular person at SailGP. I get voice notes, pictures. I get protests from team CEOs saying, the French team left their lights on. I saw them eating a burger, and I love it because they care. Like they really, really care. And, we've had a season of the Impact League. So, the moment in San Francisco when we were on stage with Dr. Sylvia Earle and the CEO of Parity, some of the biggest ocean advocates, and lifted that trophy made of carbon recycled fiber, our F50 boat. And that was the first ever trophy for the planet in sport. We call it the podium for the planet. Well, I was in tears, of course. I'm very passionate about what I do. And I just thought, I cannot believe we've done that. The New Zealand team won it. Imagine every sport in the world has some kind of trophy for being a good sport. It doesn't need to be environmental or, just doing things differently. We celebrate them being good because actually they will then inspire other people. They will influence their host cities and their partners and their broadcasters. So it was quite a big moment for me. And success is other sports having an Impact League, and we're not precious, a massive collaborator. And I think women we are way more collaborative than men. And that is definitely, what I see in sport. And so my job this summer is to go out and try and talk to other sports and try and inspire them and educate them. And I'm going to come out with a paper on principles and how we can kind of share our learnings with other sports.
And does it change, though, in terms of the teams that won on the water versus the Impact League? I was thinking about the Eurovision Song Contest. You've got these winners, and then all the Impact votes come in, and it changes the order. Are they two separate presentations?
Yeah, two separate leagues at the moment because we thought we need to get it right. But the ultimate goal is to have one integrated championship. Although this season, if they win the Impact League in an event, they get kind of marginal, race benefits. So they get craning time, they get kind of training incentives. So we are slightly linking it. But the goal in kind of season 6 is to have one league. So SailGP will be that league that has both. But one of my other goals is to have two prize money. So we have $1 million US. It's the biggest purse in sailing, which I couldn't believe when I came into the sport. And I want the same for the Impact League because or more, our teams should be more sustainable. So at the moment, we've got $500,000 this season up for Impact, but I want to get there to show the prioritization in sport.
And you mentioned that you're going to be out talking to other sports. So without preempting where that goes, are there any other sports that you feel are already doing well in this space or you're having conversations with or you can learn from too?
So many sports doing different things. Today I saw the Bundesliga was looking at sustainability and they said that they need their teams to operate in a different way. I think I always look at people like Forest Green Rovers. I just think they're just brilliant in their whole approach. And they've showed being sustainable is commercially viable and can help performance. So they're a great case study of doing things differently. Obviously, Extreme Formula E, I love what they do. I love what they're trying to do. I love how they communicate. Angel City, I have Angel City merch on all the time because I'm so I love the concept of their, what they're trying to achieve and they're living and breathing it. Everything they do, the decisions they make is all based on their purpose and their goals about what they want to achieve in women's sport. So there is lots of people. I think Formula One, even them hiring ahead of sustainability, Premier League. And again, I think we talked about it early on. I want to be that supporter in sustainability in sports and try to help each other. I don't want ever to critique them. I always think anything people do differently is great. And actually, one thing we need to do better is collaborate, to be honest. I think cross sectors and cross sports, we could collaborate better. And I've started speaking to Formula One, like Williams and McLaren, about what can we do, what can we learn. They've got obviously some of the same materials we do in our race boats. They travel their global circuit around the world. What can we kind of do together or collaborate on or work with partners on? Like temporary power. We have a Greco. I'm sure we could leave our temporary power for other events to use and be a bit more efficient in how we're thinking from a sustainability perspective. So there's a lot more collaboration, I think, to be done. And I'd love to, maybe the Impact League can help do that across different sectors of sport.
Fantastic. We've all experienced some of the challenges of working remotely in the past couple of years, but you've gone much further, moving broadcasting and umpiring and race operations to a remote model in some cases. So I'm really interested to know how that actually works in practice.
Yeah, we did remote broadcasting before COVID. We were looking at kind of how can we use tech innovation with Oracle and other partners. And we had a big broadcast team flying everywhere. It was very cost prohibitive. And so we did that before Formula One. We decided to test it. And being sailing as well, you can kind of test these things, and not get criticized. You kind of test it and see how it goes. So that saves about 100 people traveling. So we have 100 broadcast team in London. They don't go to events. And it works really well. It's really sustainable. Obviously, it's really efficient. And actually, where we race sometimes is quite difficult from a connectivity point. So actually, it kind of cuts out those issues. So that's remote broadcast operations. Remote umpiring is fascinating. So a lot of the athletes couldn't believe we were going to try this. And the reason we did is to stop flying. We're trying to stop flying staff all over the world to reduce our footprint. And we're trying to stop boats in the water. So if you ever watch a sailing race or a SailGP, you'll see our boats are powered by nature. So the foiling powered by the wind, and then they have batteries that are powered by solar units on shore. But what the issue is all the boats around them, the media boats, the team chase boats, the helicopter, that they are unsustainable. Their engines are not clean. And so we wanted to take a boat off the water, certain boats off the water for the umpires. So we thought, let's try this. We've got great tech. And so in Aarhus in Denmark, we had our umpire in Tokyo. And it worked. And there was no issues. And the athletes were a little bit worried, to be honest, but it worked. And I think once you do it once and build confidence, people really kind of enjoy. And like you said, with COVID, I think that mindset has shifted. Like remote working is not longer a barrier. It's kind of an opportunity and people are doing more of it. So, we are in every role of our business, we're trying to do more remote. Like I don't go to every event. If I need to do media trips, I do a call with them. it's probably better. I spend more time focused talking about what we're doing. So I did that in San Francisco. I spent a lot of time to the media ahead of time doing Zoom calls and interviews, and I don't need to be there physically. So I think it's just, again, a mindset shift, and COVID has really helped. But other sports need to do that more. Our biggest footprint is travel. We have so many people traveling around the world. So we need to reduce that and change how we operate.
When it comes to working with sponsors, there's clearly a balance to be struck between commercial income and choosing to work with partners who share your approach to sustainability and values. And I think, I sit on the board of Lewis FC, who've got a very...
Oh, I love them too. They're a great, I love them. Yeah.
Who have a very public stance on changing the model around football. But it does mean there's lots of due diligence to be done around sponsors and partners. So has that been hard for SailGP?
I think that's one of the biggest challenges in sport, to be honest. We are very reliant on sponsorship at the moment and broadcast revenue. And so, and host venues, they all fund your sport. So without them, you can't survive. So there's a kind of commercial reality to everything, that we do need to operate. And actually, if we don't operate, then we won't do good and we won't, deliver positive impact. So that has been a challenge for me. And I think it's a big challenge for every sport, is to get that right, to educate commercial teams. And to be honest, they're still operating like in the old sponsorship model. They still don't, like you said, do due diligence and probably think through reputationally a lot of the sponsorships or the brands that they want to align with. I've spent a lot of time upskilling my commercial team. And to be honest, when I first came in, they were all men. We have more women now because, again, I was like, this is just not great. You're selling an opportunity about getting more women sailing and it's all men. So, spending time to upskill, talking about what to look for in a sustainability report. Have they set targets? What kind of due diligence? Like if it's hidden in a website, probably not a good thing. They now are doing more due diligence and actually making me feel like a partner. So, one thing you have to do is be open-minded and go in and say, I want to make this work. Right? I'm not here as a blocker because they think people, who want to do the right thing are blocking deals. We need to be open-minded and say, we will try to make this work. But then there's certain lines that won't work, right? There's certain human rights violations. There's certain things that just are a no-go. And then again, upskilling them on what reputation means, because when they understand reputation, they won't make those decisions because commercially it will, be detrimental in the long term. So there's a massive upskilling in the commercial side of sport. And, the sponsorship model is dead. Like that old sponsorship model, nobody really cares about big branding. They want to align on sustainable development goals. They want to see how we can help on their kind of gender diversity targets. What can we do together to educate people? And I think that is a challenge. But, my call is to partners, broadcasters, sponsors, challenge your sports to be different. Don't let them not operate with inclusivity at the heart, with sustainability, because sports will listen to their sponsors, and that will help them change better. So I think that is already happening with some sports, in some brands, but I think, there can be more to be done.
Very positive and hopeful. Most of us think about the environment when we hear the term sustainability, but as you've mentioned, in addition to natural resources, our future depends on social and economic resources too. And I spoke to Tracy Edwards for the podcast, and her story very much highlights how sailing has long been male dominated, and you obviously mentioned that too. So how important do you feel it is that we see more gender parity in sailing, and what can and is SailGP doing in that space?
I love that episode, actually. I listened to it recently again, and I love her honesty and her stories of how she got there, and kind of the personal stories about what kind of, one of the stories when a sponsor said to her, like, I don't want, like 15 wives. I don't want 15 wives in a boat. That sounds horrendous. There's some, but that's reality. And one of the reasons I came to SailGP is, yes, there's a huge challenge. As a sport, we're one of the most uninclusive sports. I would say that inside and outside, but that's an opportunity to change. So there's not many sports at the moment that have an opportunity to really get gender equity at the heart. And sailing, you can have an equal boat. And so that's what drives me, is that opportunity. And it's hard and it's not easy and there's a lot to do. So I think you've got to be honest about the problem in sailing, but actually tackle it head on. And so not be scared to be criticized. So what we've done is obviously internally, we've really kind of tried to develop more female voices. So we need more women to be making decisions and to be in these discussions. And that actually really, as will help whatever we do externally and for our athletes. So we've got, now 3 female leaders at leadership level, which is really big in sailing. So that's about 41% increase in our kind of big representation. And We have amazing females leading our content, our marketing, our comms, obviously sustainability, and we are driving business growth. And we are challenging all the decisions that are being made and trying to make them more empathetic, more conscious. So that's a big thing for us. And we do want to have 50-50 kind of, positions of responsibility as a business, but we're getting there and we've made massive strides. So last season, we set up this program called the Women's Pathway Program. It's a bit different than obviously, offshore sailing. This is foiling. Like I said, it's a bit like a racing car, Formula One W Series. It's more likened to that. So there's a huge experience gap. So our female athletes have not been on an F50 boat. F50 boats, not many people in the world have ever trained or been on them. So you can't just put any athlete into a boat like that and expect them to do well, because the worst thing we can do is they fail. And obviously if they're female, we are judged more than anyone. So the experience gap is massive, and probably 10 to 15 years, which is quite depressing. Oh, wow. Yes, I know I'm hopeful, but it is quite depressing. And so I think our job at SailGP is, we've taken a lot of advice, and there's lots of differing opinions that we're still kind of figuring out what we do. But what we thought, first thing we do is get female athletes experience. So bring them into our organization. So we had female athletes training with all of our national teams last season. And then we decided that, we spoke to them, and you've got to listen a lot, to the athletes, because they're the ones that will tell you how to get the right strategy and what they believe we should do. They said they're ready to get on a 50. So in Cadiz, in Spain, mid-season last season, we had the first ever full race with female athletes on our boats. Incredible. And it was such windy conditions. It was pretty dangerous. It was quite scary. I saw their faces, Hannah Mills, before she went on, and she did look slightly petrified, because again, you're putting them into this, really elite adrenaline fuel racing that they aren't used to. And they don't want to fail. They want to show everyone out there they can do it. They want to inspire young girls that you can get on an F50. And they were incredible. I mean, in the interviews when they came off, it was just one of the best moments of my career, is feeling we gave them that opportunity and they thrived. And ever since then, so we have a female athlete on the boats at all time in our races. Again, there's lots of differing opinions, but what we at SailGP at the moment are just trying to give them the experience and get them in that squad to get them chose to be on the foiling boat, because the worst thing we can do is expose them and not give them that experience. We want them to be ready, and we want them to earn their place. We want this inclusive boat with the best athletes in the world, whoever they are. I would love an all-female boat, but they need to be the best of the best and prove that, and obviously be competing, against people who have more experience than them. So we're doing that's elite level. At grassroots, obviously, we make sure everything we do around getting young people into sailing. At events, we have a program called Inspire. It's always 50-50. We always look at different backgrounds. We always make sure that we're kind of, looking at the gender balance of getting young people into sailing. So we do that at the grassroots. Super important is to kind of do that. But the elite level is kind of focusing on our female athletes and really empowering them.
Fantastic. I'm going to take you back a little bit now, if I can do. I'd love to talk a bit about you as a young woman and where you grew up and your experience of sport, your personal experience of sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so passionate about sport, and I grew up in a sport mad family in Scotland. Dad was very competitive, played badminton for the Commonwealth Games, tennis at Junior Wimbledon, so there was quite a lot of expectation in sport. But my dad always taught me that sport has this power. He's on the board of Sport Scotland, and he just feels that it is good for everyone, good for well-being, just good for mental health. And so it was just embedded in who I was. Sport was every day, watching, Formula One races, playing badminton, playing tennis, swimming. And so I loved sport. And then when I got older, my parents were all lawyers. And so I kind of was expected to do a law degree. But then I realized I can have a career out of sport. And I did my law degree because I was going to be Jerry Maguire. I can do this. This is me. And so, from that moment on, I thought sport could be my career and my passion. And I think that makes you good at your job. So that was it. I did my law degree in Scotland. And then I'm quite brave. I decided to be Jerry Maguire and work at IMG. So what did I do? I got a tennis scholarship to Florida.
You did that after your law degree? Okay, that's interesting.
I was like, I'm not being a lawyer. I'm not being a boring lawyer. What I decided is I was a tennis player, not very good as a junior. So don't quote me on that. I wasn't very good, but I did play for Scotland. I'm proud of that. Judy Murray was one of my coaches.
So you and Judy Murray, yeah.
An inspiration. She was an inspirational female, for me growing up. I traveled with her, and Andy and Jamie, and Scottish tennis was actually brilliant. No one even knew it, but we were brilliant. So I was a tennis player. I wasn't very good. So at 16, I didn't play full time. I made that decision, but I still played a lot and I coached world-class juniors. So when I decided to be Jerry Maguire, I thought, what do? I do an American degree, and I used my sports scholarship to get there. So ultimate goal was to work at IMG. So I went to Florida, had a brilliant time playing tennis, learning about sports management in an American college, which was really interesting because obviously they're so far ahead of us in the business of sport. So I learned so much, and I landed a job at IMG. As a woman, we always say we're lucky. But actually now, and I feel like for my daughter and for my team and for women that hopefully I will help inspire them to be better, is I made that happen, right? I did that. I wasn't lucky. I was determined and I went and got that. So I got a job in IMG in Miami working for, my first boss was a formidable female, but an inspirational female, Chris Everett, like you said. So I didn't probably know how brilliant she was because she wasn't quite my era. I was more Steffi Graf, but I worked for her and she's my first boss. And, I worked around her personal kind of management, her sponsorships, as well as running her foundation and her charity event. So again, that's where my para sport for good probably first grew and my passion kind of developed. So yeah, she was a brilliant, an amazing mentor. And she was a businesswoman. She was feisty. She was determined. She was focused. She was everything. And I probably did learn a lot of my grounding, and for my career from learning from her, and so inspiring to see a female kind of in the boardroom. She would take on anyone and she wouldn't be care if they're men or women. And I loved that. And so, yeah, it was a great start to my career. And then I've done some amazing jobs and worked with some incredible people, everything from, like you said, the Olympics to working with some of the best British talent in the world, like Lewis Hamilton, spending a few years working with him. And what an incredible human being. Yeah, I've had a brilliant career, and I was thinking this morning what kind of questions you'd ask me, and some of the things I probably don't talk about a lot, but my dad told me when I was young, be unexpected. So as a woman, and I listen to some other podcasts about people saying they need to be authentic. I think as a woman, you're judged, right? Anything you do, and a woman in sport, you're very judged. And I always have been myself. I'm very authentic. I'm wearing a blue suit today. I'll wear dresses if I want. I wear color. I wear heels. I am who I am, and I am never going to change that. But you then get judged, and people don't expect you. People. I've even had women in my career say to me, "You've got a law degree." And it's really, really interesting.
Jesus,
and
it's
Jesus. But that's the world we live in. Other women saying to me, "Oh, you've got a law degree," like. Because I have fun, because I wear color, because I am myself, does not mean I'm not good at my job. So I've always been unexpected, and I'm fine with that. I've made peace with that, and that is my weapon. Because people will, not think I'll deliver, but I will show them with substance. But I'm not going to change who I am, and I love other women that do the same. Is I don't feel like I need to dress differently or conform or act like a man. I never will. And I think that's my advice when I speak to, I mentor young women in sport, and that is my advice, that be yourself and be brave and confident, and just, shut them up with substance, because you'll show them you can do this, but don't let people judge you, and don't care if they judge you. They'll do it anyway.
So you mentioned your time at Sky. So I wonder, how did you come to join Sky in the first place?
So yeah, probably one of my best jobs ever has been Sky. I'm so proud, to have worked there. And it came about because it's a funny story. I sold Sky Sports a roof at the Olympics. So at Westfield, when I was working there for London 2012, I was there to do all the sponsorship and the marketing around the Olympics. They said, you need to raise your own money. You need to go sell stuff in the shopping centre to get the money to do what you want to do. So we sold rooftops because obviously we had the best view of the park. And my first deal was selling Sky Sports a roof. And then when I was at 19 Management, David Beckham, we had a deal with Sky. So I'd always kind of kept in with Sky. When I got to know them, a few of them said, you're such a Sky person. You've got this kind of, challenger attitude. You should really always come and think to work here one day. So Robert Tansey, who was one of my clients for the David Beckham deal, when I decided to leave 19, he came to me and said, there's a job at Sky. I really think you'd be great at it. And he came to me and said, you're a Sky person, come and see. And so that's where it all happened. And, they threw me at the deep end. My Sky interview, this is classic Sky. First interview, go and meet Dave Brailsford and sit in a technical meeting. So I'm sitting in a technical meeting with Dave Brailsford. He's asking me my advice. I don't know anything about cycling, nothing about cycling. And he's quite scary when you first meet him. And it was like sink or swim. And then they took me on a sailing experience to Weymouth. They said, go and you need to meet the athletes and see if they like you, because your job is to kind of, like you said, change the face of cycling and work with the elite level as well as grassroots and skyride. So go meet the athletes. So I'm on a boat doing team building with the most amazing cyclists in the world. They don't know who I am. I'm just parachuted in, not even introduced. And I'm just kind of in this boat going, oh my goodness. Anyway, it was all about kind of, I suppose, can you cope with that environment? Can you deal with people? And so, yeah, that's how my career at Sky started. And, Sky really was formative in my career and my thinking. And some of the people who supported me and championed me were incredible. And they're not women, they're men. So, Andy Cairns, who led Sky Sports News, has been an unbelievable support to me in every way. And Jeremy Darroch is a massive visionary. He was at Sky, and gender was never an issue at Sky. People have a bad rep of Sky, and they think that's probably the only job I've had that people didn't care about gender.
And Sky obviously did so much, and you did in that role, to increase mass participation in cycling for women with the Sky Rides and Breeze. But do you regret a little that Team Sky didn't do more to drive equality in the world of professional cycling? Was that a missed opportunity?
Yeah, super interesting. I came into that role once the strategy had been set really for kind of what Sky wanted to do in cycling. So yes, when I went in, the biggest missed opportunity we had was, why wouldn't we invest in women's cycling? Because actually the money needed to invest is pretty much nothing, and we would have changed that sport. So that is something, if I was there from day one, and I wasn't, I came in halfway through the partnership, I would definitely have tried to change that behavior. And I think probably we would have definitely done it. I think it was, but again, depending on where you were, was Dave Brailsford, was that his vision too? You really need to kind of get in the beginning and set the vision and then go. I think if we'd done it at the end, it would have felt tokenism. We wouldn't have really changed it. But yes, I would have, if I could go back, I would definitely look at the women's elite sport. And I wish we could do that.
In 2017, you moved to lead Sky's entire corporate and social purpose brand strategy as part of Sky's bigger picture team. So what did that role entail?
Oh, so exciting. So you know why it's called bigger picture?
No.
Yeah. So it's not called sustainability or CSR. It's because actually James Murdoch named it. It's about seeing the bigger picture than business. And I love that. And people don't understand that. It was a bigger picture team. So you were there to see the bigger picture, to give back, to do more in the business. And it was this brilliant kind of team of passionate individuals who, again, were challenging Sky to be better in everything they do. So my job there was coming from, I sat in Sky Corporate under our CMO in the cycling job. And actually what we did a really good job with in Sky Cycling is integrate it into the brand and, kind of utilize it as a vehicle, like you said, to drive change. So CSR and kind of the bigger picture, the environmental campaigns has slightly been siloed. And so my job was, how do we integrate it, get more kind of brand value from it and get more content out of it? So get all parts of Sky to feel invested in these campaigns and what we do. So I led Skies from Rescue, one of my proudest campaigns. Again, I said a lot of proud. I am very proud of everything. But we had environmental campaigns. I led all of our volunteering. So how all of our staff, 40,000 staff, how do we give a structure to let them give back in things they care about? So I led that. I led the participation side of Sky. So like working with the ECB in the 100, that pitch, like how do we use our rights to really kind of drive participation through sport? So it was a big remit, but it was really exciting because again, at Sky, you work with the best rights holder in the world. So opportunities are endless.
And you mentioned the 100 there, and you sit now on the board of the Manchester Original. So can you tell us about that and what they're doing and why you were attracted to that opportunity?
Yeah, Manchester Originals, the best team in the 100, I have to say. But we've set a goal to be the standout team in the 100. And the way we're going to do that is to be purpose-driven. We're going to be the most inclusive team. So really kind of challenge inclusivity in cricket, which is not as bad as sailing, but still challenges. And we're going to look at what can we do, I suppose, to change sustainability and kind of, the conversation in cricket. So why was I interested? Because we have an amazing board. So we have people like Mark Chapman on the board. He's the chairman of the board, and listening to his vision about what he wants to do for cricket and how he wants to challenge it was amazing. And actually Manchester has this, as you know, and Manchester as a city has this kind of heart and this community spirit. And so being a part of that and having a new sport to kind of bring it to life just felt the opportunity was right. And I thought I can add value, because what I'm doing in sailing, there's lots of different, obviously lots of kind of learnings from both sides that SailGP are doing that the 100 could learn, and vice versa. So last season was a starting season for the 100. It was amazing. I was at the first, Manchester Originals were the first match to kick off the whole tournament, obviously a women's match. And that was a big moment for everyone in women's sport, and for us at Manchester Originals being part of that moment. So this season's really big. So we've just spent a lot of time with the board and setting our vision and setting our purpose. And we're the only team that has our own purpose and goals and vision. That is around inclusivity. So we have our own code of conduct for players. We've got female coaches coaching the men. All of our squads are numbered 1 to 34. They're not numbered men and women. They're one squad. So everything we do is one squad at the heart. I think one thing that surprised me about the 100 is, these female athletes, this amazing opportunity, big stage, but they weren't ready. I mean, it was pretty overwhelming for a lot of athletes, and our athletes felt that, our female athletes especially. And so what can we do to support them? What can we do to help them and tell that story? Because that's the reality of women's sports sometimes. Great to have opportunities, but you can't, like we're saying on the boat, you can put women in these environments. And half our female athletes had jobs. They had jobs at the same time. They have families they're still looking to take care of. So, you really have to spend time understanding, the challenges and helping support them through that. So, the Manchester Originals, watch this space. We're going to make lots of noise this summer, and, coming to the event experience will be different. We're doing loads of cool stuff around getting young people into cricket, entertainment, music, bringing Manchester to life. So yeah, it is exciting. I love the 100 concept. I'm really proud of what they have.
I'm excited. I was excited anyway. I'm even more excited for the 100 now.
Well, we'll invite you to a game. Come to a Manchester game. Yes. Come up to Emirates Old Trafford and see a game with us.
Fantastic. Along with all the incredible work you're doing at SailGP and as you've mentioned there, the Manchester Originals, you're also a mother of twins, and you sit on a number of boards, including British Paralympic Association, and I think you were an ambassador for Meaningful Business too. So, and you run marathons as well. So how do you find time to do so much in your life?
It's pretty exhausting. I'd love to be the woman that sits here and says you can do it all, but I'm quite a realist. And I think, for women in their careers, you need to realize it's really hard. But I think what you have to do is try not to feel guilty, because you're never going to be good enough in everything that you do. But just try to, be passionate, make time for your kids. I think what I do in SailGP is a global job. So I'm on the phone sometimes 6 a.m. till 11 p.m. on calls. My boss is in New Zealand. I have teams in Japan. It's pretty hard to be a mum in a global sport. And people wonder why there's not more of us. But what I do is I'm selfish with my diary. I block out time. So between 4 and 8, I put kids in my diary, and I'm not scared to do that. And women in my organization they say, please keep putting in things like the gym or getting your nails done in your diary, because then we can do that too. And it's being selfish a bit for your time, because that's important to me. And I'm better at my job if I take those time out, if I pick my kids up a few times a week, if I go take my daughter to Wildcats football or anything, that makes me happy and better at my job. So I think that's what I try to do. I don't always get it right, honestly. It's sometimes exhausting, just block time for yourself.
And just finally, we talked a lot about not getting disheartened and having hope for the future. But if you had to leave us with a final thought of what we can all do in this space, what would that be?
I think it's think differently. So in your business, what is a challenge, an opportunity you can do? So it could be gender, or it could be social, it could be environmental sustainability. It could be, you're working in a sport that doesn't, has plastic still, or, doesn't think about its environmental footprint. Think about what you can change in your business, what needs to be changed and what you can change, and try to ask the questions. Try to challenge things and do things differently. I think it's the whole mindset of doing things differently is what I want people to do. And that works across everything that we're doing. Like you said, it's like social sustainability, environmental, and just do one thing. You don't need to do 10 things, just do one thing. And it's a bit like the Manchester Originals, I think they felt overwhelmed, and inclusivity is where we can make a difference. And that's what we're focusing on. There's a lot of other things we can do, but focus on one thing, do it really well, understand it, challenge the norm, ask the right decisions. So that's what I'd ask everyone to do is challenge yourself today. What can you do in your job to think differently, or in your sport or in your organization, and go for it. Because what's going to happen? Someone will just say no. So just try, just ask the question, try and do it differently. I really love talking to Fee about her career and all that's happening at SailGP.
I'll be looking out for the next events on Sky and also watching the Manchester Originals play in the 100 this summer. If you'd like to hear about other women driving change across sport, do visit fearlesswomen.co.uk, where there are details of all of my guests from this and the previous series. You can also listen to all the podcasts on the website and find out more about the Women's Sport Collective, a network for all women working in sport. You can sign up for Changing the Game, our free weekly newsletter, which highlights the developments in global women's sport. And there's more about my book, Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport. Thanks again to Sport England for backing the Game Changers through the National Lottery, and to Sam Walker, who does a great job as our executive producer, along with Rory Alskery on sound production. Finally, thanks to my brilliant colleague, Kate Hannon at Fearless Women. Do come and say hello on social media, where you'll find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook at Sue Anstis. And if you have a couple of minutes, it would be great if you could rate or review the podcast, as it makes a big difference to help us reach new audiences. The Game Changers. Fearless Women in Sport.